Okay, Eric, you're live and ready to go.
Right, thank you, Matt. Good morning, members. Good morning, councillors and officers. My name is Councillor Eric Seward. I am the Deputy Leader of North Norfolk District Council, and I shall be chairing the meeting this morning of the District Council's Cabinet meeting. I'm chairing it because the Leader of the Council, Sarah Budikofer, cannot be with us today due to family illness and a family bereavement. Right, apologies for absence.
Just Councillor Budikofer.
Thank you. Right, the minutes of the last meeting on the 5th of December 2020. Does anybody have any amendments or alterations or comments they wish to make to those minutes? Right, can I have a proposer, please? Councillor Richard Kershaw, seconder. Councillor Greg Hayman. Thank you. So those minutes are approved. Right, Matt, do we have any public questions and statements?
None received.
Right, thank you. Do we have any items of urgent business?
Again, none received.
Do we have any declarations of interest? I can't see any. Do we have any members' questions other than members wishing to raise questions as we deal with specific items on the agenda? I can't see any, Matt. Is that your understanding?
No, I see no hands raised.
Right, move to agenda item 7, which is the recommendation from Cabinet Working Parties. The first one is the North Horsham Heritage Action Zone Working Party. Councillor Kershaw.
Thank you, Chair. This is just a resolution. I'd like to move that we Norfolk County Council be contracted as a nominated partner to assist in the design and delivery of the North Horsham Town Centre placemaking and public improvement work. This is to help with such matters as traffic orders, and we think this is a sensible and prudent measure to take forward. So I'd like to move that. Thank you.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Gay, do I have any questions?
See no hands raised.
Right, thank you, Matt. Right, can I have all those in favour, please?
Yes, that's
Right,
unanimous.
Thank you, members, on that one. Right, planning policy and build heritage. If we can take these recommendations together. Councillor Toy.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, you've got 2 months worth of recommendations there, so there's a fair list, but they're all listed in the papers, all passed unanimously, and so I move all those recommendations to the committee. Thank you.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Angie Fitch-Tillett. Do I have any questions?
See no hands raised.
Right, okay.
If I could just make a point, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I'm particularly pleased with items 8 and 9 in this in respect of landscape sensitivity and recreation avoidance. It is, as you know, our duty as a local planning authority to protect an area of outstanding natural beauty, hopefully soon to be renamed something a little less difficult to understand. We do this through the Norfolk Coast Partnership, which I vice chair. And I'm also particularly relevant in the recreation mitigation strategy. During COVID, for example, there were no breeding birds at the Holcombe estate because of visitor disturbance. This is an extreme worry to all of us. I was very pleased to see that this implemented as a condition at the recent large Fakenham planning application, and I'm very, very pleased to be able to second this.
Thank you very much for those comments. Right, can I please move to the vote? Right, I think that's unanimous, Matt.
Yeah, I didn't see Greg vote. I'm not sure if he's frozen potentially.
Right.
It looks as though he has, yeah.
Yeah, you all right? Okay, thank you. If we can now move on to recommendations from the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. There's two issues there. One is car parking income data. The other is about the budget. If you'd like just to deal with the car parking one first, please, Councillor Dixon. Thank you.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chairman and everyone. Firstly, my apologies if I'm a little wooden this morning. I don't have the papers before me, so therefore I'm swapping between iPad and iPad, and so I may be a little adrift of the pace at times, but let me, I won't dwell on the recommendations because they are there before you, but I ought to just advise you of one minor change to one of the recommendations, and this really has come about through seeing the minutes of Overview and Scrutiny Committee meeting very recently, and that applies to the second recommendation in relation to the pre-scrutiny of the budget. And that's the second recommendation, which currently reads to recommend to Cabinet that efforts are continued to identify potential saving options within the medium-term financial strategy. Missing from that sentence is the to include in that savings options within the 21-22 budget and the medium-term financial strategy. So in substance, that's what that change has effect of. So I don't really wish to speak more about the recommendations. They speak for themselves, and it's for you, Mr. Chairman, to consider.
Thank you very much. In relation to car parking income, I do think there's a need to push the season ticket option, and that is important, and I'm certainly content with the others. Councillor Shires, did you want to say something on that?
I did. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to note that after the Overview and Scrutiny Committee met, I did speak to Officer Sean Kelly in relation to how easy it is to apply for a season ticket online. So there's just a little bit of work to do to make sure prices are more prominent so people understand what a good saving they are going to get by looking at a season ticket. So hopefully that will come forward quite soon.
Thank you very much for that. So, and then on the budget, again, if we go through the process, yes, on paragraph 1, I think I can say the sooner we can get some certainty about central government support, the easier it's going to be for council treasurers across the country. So can I just ask Cabinet to, I think we just have to note those recommendations. Is that correct, Matt?
You would need to vote on whether to accept those recommendations.
Well, I'm quite content to accept those recommendations.
Do you have a seconder for that? Sorry.
Right, looking at, I think Councillor Shires was up first, so we'll take Councillor Shires. Okay, right. So can I have a vote, please?
Okay, that looks unanimous. Yep.
Right. Next item is agenda item 9, update on the District Council's response to the COVID pandemic. I now ask Steve Blatch, as the Chief Executive, to provide an update to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, members. Cabinet will appreciate that with high and rising rates of COVID-19 nationally over the Christmas and New Year holiday period, that the government's announced a third national lockdown on the 4th of January. The lockdown will be formally reviewed by the government during the week of the 22nd of February, although the Prime Minister has already stated that schools in England will not reopen until at least Monday, the 8th of March, essentially providing notice that the current lockdown will continue for at least a further 5 weeks. During this time, it is hoped that case numbers will fall, reducing pressure on NHS acute hospital services and allowing good progress to be made in rolling out the national vaccination programme to priority groups. Here in North Norfolk, we have seen some of the lowest levels of COVID cases in the country during the first peak of the pandemic in the spring of last year, throughout the summer and into the autumn. Up until the 14th of December, we had never seen more than 100 cases on any day in the rolling 7-day reporting system used by the government, with our highest rates recorded in mid-November when there was an outbreak in a single setting in North Walsham. However, from the 14th of December, cases both nationally and locally rose rapidly. And on the 4th of January, North Norfolk recorded 442 cases, or a rate of 421.6 cases per 100,000 population, when the rate at Norfolk was 505 per 100,000, and the England national rate was 680.5 per 100,000. Since the 4th of January, our case numbers have fallen steadily, and at the 26th of January stood at 169 cases, or a rate of 161.2 per 100,000, against a Norfolk rate of 323.7 and an England rate of 309.5. This meant that North Norfolk was the first and only authority in Norfolk to record a rate of below 200 cases per annum per 100,000 since the new year. Our cumulative total of cases since March 2020 now stands at 2,659 confirmed infections in North Norfolk as at the 31st of January, giving a total number of 2,536 cases per 100,000, compared to a Norfolk average of 3,919 and an England average of 5,936. This means that North Norfolk continues to have one of the lowest cumulative rates of infection per 100,000 population of any local authority area in the country, being 304th out of 314 local authority areas in England. The total number of COVID deaths in North Norfolk as at the 31st of January since the pandemic started in March of 2020 was 153 deaths, giving a rate of 145.9 per 100,000, compared to a Norfolk average of 156 and an England average of 166 deaths per 100,000. On this indicator, North Norfolk doesn't fare as well as a number of other authorities, being 195th out of the 314 local authority areas in England. This is possibly due to our older demographic. As a council, we continue to work hard to maintain low levels of infection through our actions in continuing to share government and local messages asking people to stay at home to protect the NHS and save lives. In the second week of January, we displayed additional messaging in Fakenham, North Walsham and Wells Town Centre and in Mumsley, which were the areas of the district which had the highest and at the time rising case numbers, advising local people that COVID cases were rising locally. These posters were displayed for a limited period of time to maximise the impact of that messaging. In addition, our COVID support officers have been offering advice to businesses, visiting supermarkets across the district at the request of the national government, and advising residents of the lockdown, as well as providing community support such as the delivery of a small number of food parcels and prescriptions in emergency situations. With the November lockdown and then Norfolk moving into Tier 4 from December the 26th and the further national lockdown from the 4th of January, our economic growth and revenue teams have made a further £25 million of payments to government grants to local businesses. The council has been recognised by independent research by the New Anglia Local Enterprise Partnership to have paid out more money to more businesses than any other authority in Norfolk by some clear margin, which is a huge achievement given the number of grant schemes which are now in operation. The team also launched our additional restrictions discretionary grant scheme on the 11th of January and has already paid out more than £143,000 from this fund to 139 businesses and has agreed to widen eligibility further so that more businesses may benefit from this funding in the future. Staff in the benefits team continue to make self-isolation payments under the test and trace scheme to people on low incomes who have had a positive COVID test or are required to self-isolate as a contact of someone with a positive test, and we continue to be involved in discussions with county partners around an enhanced test and tracing model to try and minimise transmission within the district further in the coming months. COVID test facilities continue to be provided on District Council car parks in Cromer and Fakenham so that local people do not have to travel long distance to access testing facilities. Since the new year, these facilities have operated in Cromer on 4 days a week and at Fakenham 2 days a week. Nationally and locally, much focus since early December has been on developing the scale of the vaccination programme. Fakenham Medical Practice was the first in North Norfolk to provide vaccines to people aged over 80 and health and social care staff from the 14th of December. And from mid-January, vaccination centres were also operating at Sheringham Surgery, Rossi's Leisure Centre at North Walsham for patients from the Aldborough, Cromer, Munsley and North Walsham medical practices, and at Hovton Village Hall for priority groups of patients from the Hovton and Stalham GP practices. Today, it has been announced that a new large-scale vaccination centre will operate from North Walsham Community Centre from this Saturday, the 6th of February, and the District Council has supported these plans by agreeing to suspend parking charges in the New Road car park North Walsham for people attending vaccination. We would therefore ask people using North Walsham Town Centre to use our car parks at Bankloke, Munsley Road and Vicarage Street from the end of this week. Throughout the past few weeks, we have continued to operate our internal gold civil contingency arrangements to develop and agree our local response to partnership activity across Norfolk as part of the Norfolk Resilience Forum and the Public Health Protection and Engagements arrangements. And in Councillor Butikofer's current absence from council business at this time, Councillor Kershaw is our lead member in these groups. As we look forward to the time when the current economic and social restrictions can be lifted, we are already planning how we can support our local communities and businesses open up for what we will anticipate being another busy summer holiday season with large numbers of staycation visitors coming to North Norfolk, but with the continued need for vigilance and social distancing measures in place whilst the national vaccination programme continues into the summer. For the time being, therefore, we urge all of our residents and businesses to continue following government advice to stay at home, save lives and protect the NHS. If any members have any questions on that statement, I'm happy to take them. Thank you.
Right, do members have questions?
See, Councillor Kershaw and Councillor John Toy have questions.
Councillor Kershaw.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like, it's not a question, I think this is a statement. This is very good news that North Walsham Community Centre is acting as a hub. And it's, I have to applaud the officers for being very quick in organising signage and arranging for the car park to be available free of charge. And I think this is, it's a great step forward. And I think it's going to make people feel much more confident in the coming weeks. Thank you.
Councillor Toy.
Again, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, as with Councillor Kershaw, more a statement than a question. To acknowledge this has been going on for nearly a year now, and how well that we've performed, thanks to Officer Blatch and the whole team. That they keep bringing these initiatives forward and doing the best they can to give us the best protection with everything that's available to them. So it was just to acknowledge that and to say, it must give confidence to local people that we are doing a good job. So thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Withington.
Right, thank you, Chair. Good morning. It's a question or a bit of information for Mr. Blatch. I know I've spoken to you previously about the difficulties with getting access to Cromer testing. This weekend, again, we've got the same issues in that Cromer is not coming up on the available sites. So Sheringham residents today are heading off to Norwich, as that is the two sites in Norwich are the only ones flagging up. So I don't know whether it's an availability question or whether there's a glitch in the system somehow. Thank you.
Yes, I think that's a very valid question. I was just going to ask Steve Blatch, what about Cromer?
So there are, I think, Chair, there are two issues there, if I may. I think the question Councillor Withington posed was in respect of mobile testing facilities. They attend in Cromer Meadow Car Park on Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays and Saturdays. And there is local testing at Fakenham on a Wednesday and a Sunday. That position has been in place since the beginning of the year. So I suppose, Councillor Withington, if somebody has looked for a test today in North Norfolk, there isn't a local testing facility. There should be provision tomorrow, Tuesday, and then at the latter end of the week in terms of Cromer, and Wednesday at Fakenham. I'm happy to take the issue away if those dates aren't being displayed on the national.gov.uk website, where people are needing to register for access to mobile testing. Sorry,
thank you. Yes, it doesn't display that Cromer's there, and you can only go to the next day. So if you're looking for Fakenham, then it won't show up.
Okay, I'm happy to take that away.
Thank you.
In terms of the point, Councillor Seawood, that you raised around access to vaccinations for people in Cromer, these are arranged at the present time for priority groups on the basis of primary care network arrangements. And so the primary care network covering Cromer is that also covers Aldborough, Munsley, and the 2 practices in North Walsham. And the arrangements which the clinical commissioning group has put in place to date is to serve those communities is at Rossies, North Walsham. So there is a requirement or recognition that there's some need for local people to travel. We are in regular contact with the CCG. There is community transport, or transport can be arranged for residents from Cromer to access that facility, and we continue to make representations that a facility of vaccination would be appreciated in the Cromer area.
Yes, thank you very much for that. Right, does anybody else have any further questions on that COVID report? Matt, I can't see any.
No, I don't see any, no.
Right, well, thank you very much for that. We can now move on to delegated decisions. They're basically around COVID support. Do I have somebody who can propose them, please? Councillor Kershaw, can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Toy, does anybody have any questions? Right, can I have a vote then please? All in favour of the delegated decisions?
Okay, that's unanimous.
Right, thank you very much. Right, I now come to the next item, which is item 11, which is the 2021-22 budget and the medium-term financial strategy 22-25. The Cabinet is being asked this morning to agree to recommendations on the 21-22 budget and to note the current financial projections in the medium term for the financial years 2022 to 2024/25. The budget for the next financial year from April until March 22 has been presented in the challenging circumstances presented by the COVID pandemic. There is also uncertainty over when some form of normality will return as the year progresses, and until this happens, what extra forms of government support may or may not be available to councils to address any losses of income and increased costs are not known. This budget is, as required by law, a balanced budget for the next financial year. It is a budget which maintains existing council services. There are no cuts and no use of financial reserves to plug a budget deficit. The council, where it is able to, is not increasing charges. So, for example, parking charges on our car parks remain the same. Our programme to improve facilities in the district continues, from the expected opening of the new leisure centre in Sheringham in August, to the ongoing refurbishment of our most widely used toilets, and initiatives such as tree planting under our green climate emergency agenda. All of this is being done with a council tax increase for district council services for most of households of less than £5 per year, or around 10 pence a week. I should also add that the guidance from government civil servants is that ministers expect councils to use their income and council tax raising powers wherever possible, and not to do so means that they are not taking the addressing of future financial deficits seriously. Looking forward, financial deficits are programmed for future financial years. It is like many other councils. It is largely due to uncertainties over what financial support will come from central government in future. This council, as a financially prudent authority, has to plan for a reduction in government's financial support, and contained within the budget papers are proposals on how this fall in income is to be addressed. I do not expect the reductions in government support to be as great as is forecast, but we have to do contingency planning in case this happens. Lastly, the District Council is the billing authority or collection authority in this part of Norfolk for council tax. It is likely that the average Band D property council tax increase will be around £70 for the financial year starting in April. As you will see from the budget papers, paragraph 617, just over 90% of this increase arises from other councils, including the police authority. The budget proposals will now go to the council's overview and scrutiny committee, and then to full council on the February the 24th for final approval. The council is still waiting to hear what the final level of government support will be, and some further work on the budget is still continuing. Thus, some further changes can be expected before the final papers to full council. However, the main thrust of what will be put to full council for the 21-22 budget are contained within the papers before the Cabinet this morning. I therefore move the recommendations. And I also have Finance Officer Councillor Lucy Hume with us this morning to deal with any technical questions that members may have. Thank you. Before I take members' questions, do I have a seconder for those recommendations? Councillor Shires, questions?
See Councillor John Rest and Councillor Nigel Dixon have their hands raised.
Good morning, Councillor Rest.
Yes, good morning, Chairman. Thank you very much. Can I just first of all say I found it a very comprehensive report. I have read most of it, I hope. I have one slight little inquiry more than a query. It's in Appendix A1, depending on what format you're using, it's either page 50 or page 60 if you're electronic, and it comes under income, which is very carefully listed, everything we have. What I can't seem to find is anything about an income that this authority is getting from the solar panel fit payment. I wonder if somebody could advise me where that is, and do we have a current figure for that as part of our income?
Right. I have seen some figures around this recently in correspondence. Lucy Hume, can you help us here, please?
Yes, of course. Good morning. So Appendix A1 will show you the kind of main variances between the years. So that item isn't on there. I think the last projections we have for the feed-in tariff is about £10,000 per year. So it's not a huge amount of income, but hopefully we would see that increase. It's held within the property services budget, but it's not on Appendix A1 because it's not a significant variance from the previous financial year.
Okay, all right, thank you for that.
Councillor Dixon.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got a number of points that I'd like to raise with you, if you would indulge me. But just before I do, you mentioned in your commentary that this budget would be coming back to overview and scrutiny before it comes to full council. Overview and scrutiny has already seen this budget. In fact, you've already seen the recommendations that it's made in respect of that. The one part that it hasn't seen is the medium-term financial strategy, and that's due to come to us next month. So we have already seen the budget, and you have already got the recommendations, and they were those that you considered earlier on this morning. Is that does that make sense?
But it makes, I'm quite content with that. My understanding was that it would come back to you, but if the officers say it doesn't need to, well, then of course it doesn't. But I don't know if Cara, Jordan or Lucy can just help you there. I thought it went back through overview and scrutiny.
Just clarify, Eric, the scrutiny can't essentially scrutinise the same report twice. So
Right, okay.
whilst the full details of the MTFS weren't included in that budget, they are coming to the February meeting, but we won't see a return of the actual budget report.
That's all right. And I apologise, Councillor Dixon, then for mentioning.
No problem, Mr. Chairman, just to make sure that we're all on the same page, that's all. Can I just start, please, with on page 19, where the recommendations are, and noting that the title of this paper is the 2021-22 budget and medium-term financial strategy. I see no recommendation in the list of recommendations relating to approval or acceptance of the medium-term financial strategy. The nearest that we get to that is number 8, where members are asked to note the current financial projections for the period to 24-25, but there is no approval or otherwise of the medium-term financial strategy on your list of recommendations that I can see, unless I've missed it somewhere else.
Right. Can the officers just guide me on that in terms of the exact process? My understanding is the MTS has to go to full council and it gets approved there, but can somebody just help me on that one, please?
I would say, Eric, if it's an accidental oversight, you could essentially recommend as well to accept the MTFS and recommend that council approve it as well.
Okay, well, we will do that. There's perhaps it should have been in there. I apologise again for that, Councillor.
That's okay, Mr. Chairman. Essentially, we will come back to that in a further point that I have to raise, and that may give rise to a further comment from you. Can I just move on then to page 21? And in the executive summary and the third paragraph into the executive summary, the last sentence of that says that the table below shows the movements as reported as part of the updated medium-term financial strategy and the updated budget forecasts. So when we move to the table below, that does not relate to any of that mentioned there, and nor can I find that anywhere else in the paper. So can you help me on that?
Can Lucy Hume give us some assist there, please? I think I'm seeing something. Lucy?
Yes, apologies. That refers to table 1, which is actually in section 5.1.
Right, I'm just trying to find table 5.1. Sorry, you say that
page 20, top of page 27 on the printed agenda.
Yes, I've got that. That doesn't relate to the medium-term financial strategy, does it? That's forecasting the 21-22 budget.
Yes, that's correct. It just shows the updated forecast, which was prepared as part of the medium-term financial strategy. I think the updated figures in terms of those future years are in Appendix A, which I think also came to overview and scrutiny. So if that section of the report is confusing, I'm happy to take that out.
Well, it's certainly confusing to me. I can't speak for others. It really comes to light in my search for the medium-term financial strategy. I'm seeing projections and forecasts, but I'm not seeing a strategy expressed within this paper. But you may be able to point that out to me in some other part that I might have missed. So I think that does need to be clarified, because certainly as it reads at the moment, the table below has nothing to do with that particular topic. And even the one that you've just pointed to in 5.1 relates to the current budget and not to the medium-term financial strategy.
So I can answer the point about the medium-term financial strategy. So, so this financial year, due to the pressures of COVID, we usually used to have a medium-term financial strategy that would come forward to Cabinet and go through the committee cycle in the autumn. Due to the pressures of COVID, we decided this year to include that within the budget paper itself. There's lots of other councils that do this, so it's not a strange thing to do. So we didn't decide to do a separate report. So if you look at the medium-term financial strategy and the budget reports next to each other, they are quite similar. So perhaps it would be good to look at last year's as a comparison. So the budget report just updates the text and the figures that were in the medium-term financial strategy. So that's effectively what section 9 within this report does. So if you look at last year's medium-term financial strategy, everything that was contained within that document is within this new budget report. It's just not separately kind of billed as a medium-term financial strategy, if you get my drift. But section 9 covers that. So it looks at the future projections. That needs to be read in conjunction with Appendix E, which is the sensitivity analysis around the those future year scenarios. That is a new appendix as well. So that was there to help members appreciate that those figures might change and in what respect. Section 10 is also part of that medium-term financial strategy section. So again, if you look at sections 9 and 10 together and Appendix E, that should have all the contents that the old medium-term financial strategy used to have in it. So hopefully that is of use to you.
Thank you for that, Lucy. What I'm essentially struggling to identify is the element of strategy. I see the elements of projections and forecasts, but I'm not seeing how, I'm not seeing a strategy which expresses how the gaps in future years are going to be met. I see in the appendix that you pointed out the assumptions and the sensitivity analysis, but I'm not seeing the strategy on the closure of those gaps. But maybe we shall see those at overview and scrutiny next month in the paper that you're due to present then. So I won't make any more of it than the points that I've made now, because we may be able to resolve that next month. I don't know. But I just point out at the moment, as the paper stands, I am not clear what the strategy is with regard to future years and the closing of those gaps, other than those assumptions and the sensitivity analysis and the forecast that you have given. So I just make that point. I don't want to make heavy weather of that, but it would be wrong of me not to express the difficulty that I have in finding that expression of a strategy.
Yes, I think we can try and bring this particular area to a close now. It will be going to overview and scrutiny, the medium-term financial strategy. All I will say is that overall, by February 2022, this council has to have a balanced budget. Within the papers, there are a number of things which we're planning to do to address that. That includes a zero budgeting exercise. It includes asking departments to look at the implications of a 10% reduction in their budgets. There is some review also about fees and income to ensure that costs are met. Those are all proposals which are within the paper. The bugbear that I have with all of this looking forward is that I want some certainty from the government about what our financial support will be in future years. If I had that, it would be much easier to have a strategy, an action plan, and be able to actually deliver something with some reliability going forward. Until we get that, we will struggle. Have I any other questions elsewhere?
See, Councillor John Toy has a hand raised, and it looks like Councillor Cushing wanted to raise a question as well.
Councillor Toy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just going back to Councillor Rest's point about the solar panels. Whilst yes, we need to know the income, and I agree that it's important that we know that there's £10,000 there. I think it's important to note that we're also saving on electricity, although we won't have seen some of that because of the lack of use of the buildings through COVID. But there is a saving to be had there as well. Our electric bills should go down, and of course the carbon advantage for what we're producing as carbon-free energy. So I just wanted to make that point. There's a bit of a balance there that is not necessarily fully evident in the numbers in just looking at the feed-in tariff. Thank you.
Yes, I have seen something on that recently, and we'll see as we move through the year if we can pull some more accurate information out. Councillor Cushing.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Thank
you.
Like Councillor Dixon, unfortunately my paper copy didn't arrive either. I do understand it was posted to me, so it makes it a little bit difficult to sort of follow the agenda, so to speak. I do have one or two queries, if I may. Just one minor point to point out on page 45, go to section 12.3. It says down there, it refers to the impact of the election that's coming in December, looks like this year. So unless you know something that I don't, I think that paragraph might want to be amended. I'm assuming we're having no general election this year. Slightly more substantive question, if I may, is on page 76, if we can go there. It says at the bottom there, if I go to the very bottom line, it looks like it says internal and external borrowing. Can you clarify to me how much of that is external borrowing, and I think it would be helpful if we could have those two lines split out to know what is internal borrowing and what is external borrowing?
Yes, I'll ask the officer to deal with this. The external borrowing has been indicated for some time, relates around essentially two areas, the Sheringham Leisure Centre and the waste vehicles. But Lucy, can you provide a bit more on that for us, please?
Yes, of course. So the reason why those figures aren't split out is to give us a little bit of flexibility from a treasury management perspective. So we would often budget for something as external borrowing, but then when we actually come to spend the money, we might decide to fund it through internal borrowing instead, if we feel we have the resources available to do that. I'm quite happy to provide a split of that figure for you if you think it'd be useful. But the reason why is those two figures are pushed together is to give us a little bit of flexibility around exactly what type of borrowing to use. We can also use internal borrowing and then decide later on to externalize it if our cash flow allows us to do that. So it's just to give flexibility, but I'm more than happy to provide a breakdown if you think that would be useful.
I suppose I'm assuming that external borrowing is more expensive than internal. So that being the case, and I think it probably would be, certainly from my point of view.
Yeah.
Okay. Just so I don't have to scroll forward to page 87. So we go to 3.6. It makes mention of the councillors aware of opportunities that may arise, may be realisable through private finance initiatives. how do you see those opportunities plugging into the corporate strategy in future, please?
Lucy, can you help us?
I think,
I
Chair,
think that question's on the next item.
I was going to say, I think it's on the next item. Sorry, Councillor
That's what
Cushing. You've moved on at pace.
Oh, right, well, there we are. Okay, fine.
It's
Sorry,
all
a
right.
bit difficult.
As the chairman, I was running. I was trying to find page 87. And I thought,
Okay, I'll wait for the answer to that one. Okay, that's fine. Lovely.
That's it. Right. Is there any further questions? Councillor Dixon.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have one further question in relation to page 38, table 4. That lists the council tax projections and shows the impact of the 495 increases over the next 4 years on the projected deficits. Down the left-hand side, the years listed don't seem to tie up with the calendar, so to speak. So you've got 2021, and then we go from 22 to 23, and then we go back to 2021 and 21, 22. I would have thought that they would have clicked year on year so that we ended up around 2024.
Well spotted, Councillor Dixon. I've spotted that one now, and we'll get it changed for you.
Thank you very much.
Right. Is there any further questions? Right. Can I have a vote, please, for the approval of those recommendations?
I just suggest, Councillor Seward, that you add as a ninth recommendation there to recommend that Council approves the MTFS as well as was discussed.
Yes. Sorry. Yes, we will do that. Okay. Can I have a vote, please?
Okay, that looks to be all in favour.
Right, thank you very much, members. Right, we're now moving on to the next item on the agenda, which is the capital strategy. I simply move the recommendations. Can I have a seconder, please? And then we'll go to questions. Councillor Toy. Right, Councillor Cushing had a question. Do you want that repeated, Lucy Hume, or can you answer it?
Around the role of PFI, I think it was, wasn't it? Yeah, so we would be looking at PFI as a potential, but only in conjunction with our Treasury advisor's advice on that one. To date, we haven't had any considerations of using PFI for any of our council projects. I think that a lot of what we do isn't the appropriate scale for PFI, and at this time it's not something that we're actively considering, but we have it in there to give us the option that if during the year we decide to do that, then we can do.
Councillor Cushing, does that help?
Yes, it does. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Is there any other questions you have on this item?
No, thank you.
Right. Anybody else have further questions on this item?
See no further hands raised.
Right, can I have a show of hands, please, in favour of that strategy?
That looks all in favour.
Right, the next one is the investment strategy. I simply move the recommendation that the council be asked to resolve that the investment strategy is approved. Can I have a seconder, please? Virginia Gay. Do I have any questions?
See no hand raised.
Can you see any, Matt?
No, sorry.
Right, can I have a vote, please, of approval?
That looks to be all in favour.
I now move to the Treasury Management paper. Again, I move the recommendations. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Lloyd, do I have any questions?
I see no hands raised.
Right, thank you. Can I have a vote for approval, please?
It looks to be all in favour.
Thank you. Right, item 15, which is the Norfolk Council tax hardship policy. Councillor Hayman.
Thank you. Yes, this is pretty much a process piece of business. We distribute funds on behalf of the government. The details for the methodology for the distribution are there in the report. So I recommend acceptance.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Shires, do I have any questions? Right, can I have a vote, please?
It looks to be all in favour.
Right, item 16, the communications delivery plan, which has been to overview and scrutiny committee. Steve Blatch, do you have anything you wish to add or to introduce this report?
Mr. Ferrari is able to join you, Chairman.
Right. Good morning, Joe Ferrari. Do you have anything you wish to add?
Good morning, Chairman and members. No, just to reiterate, most of you have seen this plan before. It's now been through various stages of internal scrutiny by officers, members, and the Oversight and Scrutiny Committee, with input taken on board throughout. The main aim of the strategy remains to build audience for the council's channels, to improve the way we communicate with our residents, to review internal communications, to improve the content around things like the council's business meetings, etc., to introduce an internal graphic design resource. So the report is as the committee can see, and hope that it can be recommended for approval.
Right, thank you. I have a question, I think, from Councillor Rest.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a small question. Under Joe's statement about internal comms, can I put in a request that somehow that when members are phoned at home by NNDC, we can identify where that call is coming from? I'm very reluctant to pick phones up that I don't know the number. So I may be missing something. They don't always use the mobile. I know we have discussed this, but I think some sort of sensible code, it could say NN, it doesn't matter, but I do think it would help. And I think some of us are missing maybe some of the calls. If that could be looked at, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, I always just get withheld, John. Right. I'll take Councillor Shires next, and then we'll go back to the officer.
It was just in response to Councillor Rest. That is something that we are discussing, I believe, moving forward on. It's a little bit more technical than I would have thought to implement across the council, but it is in hand as far as I'm aware, John. I can chase up to see where we are, unless Chief Officer's got another string to add to that.
The issue has been raised and discussed by management team. There are a number of technical issues and solutions, but the options have been outlined, and as Councillor Shires says, I think it will be addressed in the near future.
Right. Just checking with Councillor Dixon, there was no specific recommendations I recall from this on overview and scrutiny, but is there anything you wish to add or not?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, there were no formal recommendations. There were, I think, the odd action or two which were agreed to be taken forward, but no formal recommendations. So I've got nothing further to add. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Right, can I have somebody to propose this, please? Councillor Kershaw, can I have a seconder? Councillor Toy. Right, all those in favour?
Yeah, it should be unanimous.
Okay, thank you. Right, now we go on to agenda item 17, providing mortgage loan funding for Homes for Wells. There is a below the line paper there in relating to circumstances around potential applicants for these properties. If members wish to ask questions or refer to that, I'll have to take it below the line. Councillor Hayman.
Thank you. Thank you. This is part of our attempt to increase our provision for affordable homes across the district by using partners, and in this case a registered provider for homes in Wells. The loan enables us, or for them, to double the number of homes that they would be able to provide, which are purchases from a previous registered provider who had the homes there, who are selling those off to invest in new properties elsewhere in the district. It's a piece of exciting innovation for us as an authority to try and boost provision of affordable homes. Obviously it's a very low risk. We have an asset which is secured against the loan, which we will be providing to Homes for Wells. So I commend it to my colleagues.
Right, do I have a seconder, please?
I would like to second this, Chair.
Thank you,
it's in line with our corporate plan, and we support the provision of and securing of affordable homes in the area, particular areas such as Wells that suffer with so many second home issues. So very happy to second this.
I've got a question from Councillor Rest.
Thank you, Chairman, again. Just a small point. I wonder, have we secured from Homes for Wells who their asset lock is with? And can we provide a name for that if possible?
Can I have a response to that question? Would it be better if it comes from an officer? I'm trying to think who's with us this morning.
Graham Connolly is here. I don't know if he has those details. Graham, are you there? He is. He's just unmuted. Yeah.
Coming up.
I'm here. I'm afraid I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know if Lucy would have the answer. If not, I can make some inquiries with Homes for Wells.
Lucy, can you help us, or do we give a written response?
I think a written response might be best in this context.
Okay, we get back to you with a written response, John. Councillor Dixon.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question doesn't take us into below the line matter. At paragraph 3.9, where it states that the Homes for Wells are unable to raise the mortgage finance from their usual funding sources and have not been able to find an suitable alternative funder. I'm trying to gain a clearer understanding about why the Homes for Wells are unable to raise the funds from other sources, and why, in effect, North Norfolk District Council is the lender of last resort. My question is really only to try and gain, as I said, a better understanding of what the reasons are as to why they are not able to raise the funding. I've got no particular issues with the purpose of the loan, or indeed the security of it, but clearly that matter does interest me at the very least.
Right.
I wonder whether that information is confidential. Graham, you might be able to help us out there.
I've got Steve Blatcher's got his hand up. Steve.
Thanks.
I think the question that Councillor Dixon has asked is one that should be shared with members, so I think we should take it away in respect to the previous question asked by Councillor Rest and bring back a statement for all members which outlines that. I think the Homes for Wells is a strong and valued local housing provider that we wish to support in principle, but I think the questions that both Councillor Rest and Councillor Dixon have raised are of relevance and interest to members at large, and we should provide you with that information. We'll do so in a written response.
Right, are you content with that, Councillor Dixon?
Indeed, I am, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Right. Do I have any further questions? Right. Can I have a vote, please? All those in favour?
That looks to be unanimous.
Right. Thank you very much, members. Moving on. Item 18, exclusion of the press and the public. We have no items under the to be excluded. So I can now bring the meeting to a close, and I would like to thank everybody for their participation and attendance this morning. And I'm always particularly appreciative of the questions that get asked. For those that are going on to a business planning meeting, can I suggest we start at about 11:10, just so we can have a short break? Okay then, good morning, everybody.
Morning.